Everything you believe about success, money, and love might be upside down. Paradoxes twist reality. Stay with me, and you'll never see life the same way again. The first paradox is called the confidence paradox. Admitting doubt is what makes you truly confident. At first, this idea feels strange, almost upside down. We are taught that confidence means certainty, that to be confident is to have no hesitation, no cracks, no weakness in our voice or in our stance. From childhood, we are told to speak boldly, to stand tall, to never show fear, to cover doubt with strength. And yet, when you meet someone who pretends to know everything, who hides every uncertainty, you feel something missing. Your confidence feels brittle, like glass ready to shatter. But when you meet someone who says, "I don't know," with calmness, when they admit their doubts without shame, you feel their strength. Their honesty is their power. That is the paradox. Admitting doubt is not the opposite of confidence. It is the root of it. Think of a teacher in a classroom. One teacher pretends to have every answer. When a student asks a question that goes beyond the lesson, the teacher improvises, pretending to know, hiding their uncertainty. At first, it seems impressive, but slowly, the students begin to sense it. The trust erodes, the mask slips, and the confidence looks false. Another teacher, faced with the same question, pauses and says, "That's a wonderful question. I don't know the answer. Let's find it together." And suddenly, the students lean closer. Respect grows. Confidence does not come from pretending to know. It comes from being willing to learn. History reveals this paradox again and again. Socrates, one of the wisest philosophers of ancient Greece, became known for admitting that he knew nothing. His humility and doubt made him great. He did not hide behind false certainty. Instead, he let his questions shine brighter than answers. And centuries later, his name is still remembered, not because he pretended to know, but because he admitted he did not. That honesty was confidence. Why does this paradox exist? Because doubt is not weakness. Doubt is awareness. When you see the gaps in your knowledge, when you admit your uncertainty, you show strength. You are not shaken by the unknown. You are strong enough to face it. Pretending certainty is like building a house on sand. It looks solid, but it collapses quickly. Admitting doubt is like building on rock. It is steady because it is honest. Think of love. In relationships, many believe confidence means never doubting, never hesitating, always being certain of every word, every promise. But real intimacy is built on the courage to say, "I'm not sure," or "I feel afraid," or "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I want to walk it with you." When you share doubt with honesty, trust deepens. Your partner knows you are real, not hiding behind a mask of false strength. Confidence in love is not about claiming perfection. It is about admitting imperfection and still standing open. Consider work. In the workplace, people often try to project absolute certainty. A boss who insists they always know the right path, who never admits mistakes, may look strong at first. But when things go wrong, the cracks appear. Their authority is questioned. Another leader who says, "I'm not certain, but let's figure it out together," gains respect. Their openness builds trust. People follow them not because they always know, but because they are not afraid of not knowing. Confidence at work is not silence in doubt. It is clarity in admitting it. The paradox also touches health. Many people fear admitting uncertainty in their bodies. They hide their worries, pretend they are fine, never ask for help. At first, this looks strong, but silence can become dangerous. Illness grows in hidden places. The one who admits, I feel something is wrong, I don't know what it is, but I need to ask for help, shows true confidence. They are not ruled by pride. They are strong enough to admit vulnerability, and in that vulnerability lies survival. Think also of money. A person who pretends absolute certainty in every investment, who never admits doubt, often risks everything. Their pride blinds them. But another person who admits, I don't understand everything, I need to learn, I might make mistakes, avoids ruin. Their doubt becomes wisdom. Their confidence grows not from arrogance, but from balance. In money, as in life, the strongest are those who admit they do not know everything. The paradox even touches art. An artist who insists that their work is perfect, who hides doubt, often stops growing. Their confidence becomes rigid, unmovable. But the artist who admits doubt, who says, I am not sure if this is good enough, but I will keep creating, grows endlessly. Their uncertainty fuels their art. Their confidence is not in being finished, but in being open to the unknown. Doubt is not the end of creation. It is the beginning. Why do we admire those who admit doubt? Because it feels human. Certainty can be cold, distant, unreachable, but doubt, spoken with calmness, connects us. It shows that we share the same struggles, the same questions. And yet, the one who admits doubt without fear shows us something deeper. They are not controlled by it. They stand with it, and in standing they reveal strength. Think of science. The greatest discoveries did not come from those who claimed they knew everything. They came from those who admitted they did not. Newton admitted he did not understand gravity, only its effects. Einstein admitted he was unsure about the nature of light, and his curiosity gave us relativity. Scientists move forward not with certainty, but with doubt that fuels questions. The paradox is alive in every breakthrough. Confidence is not saying, I know it all. Confidence is saying, I don't, but I will seek. Even in spirituality, the paradox whispers. Many religious teachers did not claim certainty over every mystery. Instead, they taught humility before the unknown. True faith was not about answers, but about the strength to live with their questions. Admitting doubt was not a weakness in their belief. It was the deepest form of confidence, trusting something greater than themselves even when they did not fully understand it. This paradox also speaks in friendships. A friend who always pretends to have advice, who always acts certain, may seem strong, but their words begin to feel hollow. Another friend who listens, who admits, I don't know what you should do, but I'm here with you, becomes the most trusted. Their doubt does not make them less valuable. It makes them real. Confidence is not about always guiding. It is about being unafraid to stand together in the unknown. Think of nature. A tree does not claim certainty over storms. It bends, it sways, it accepts its doubt in the wind. And in that humility, it survives. The mountain does not pretend to be eternal. It wears down, shifts, breaks, and yet in its quiet endurance, it commands respect. Nature shows us that true confidence is not rigidity, but resilience. And resilience is born from admitting that change, doubt, and uncertainty are natural. So how do we live this paradox? By practicing honesty with ourselves first. By saying, I don't know, when we do not. By admitting fear when it rises. By sharing doubt instead of hiding it. Each admission is not weakness, but strength. Each act of honesty makes our foundation stronger. Confidence does not grow by pretending. It grows by opening. Imagine confidence as a flame bush. If you hide every crack, if you cover every weakness with walls, the flame suffocates. But if you open the space, let air flow, let doubt enter, the flame burns brighter. Doubt is not the enemy of confidence. It is the oxygen that feeds it. Think of children learning to walk. They fall, they stumble, they doubt their steps. And yet, it is in those moments of doubt that strength grows. A child who admits fear, but keeps trying finds balance faster than a child who pretends to already know. Doubt is part of learning, and learning is confidence in motion. Consider again relationships. Two people walking through life together may admit doubts about the future. They may say, "I don't know where we will be in 10 years. I don't know how things will change. But I want to face it with you." Those words carry more weight than 1,000 promises of certainty. Doubt, admitted honestly, is more powerful than empty guarantees. Confidence is not about removing uncertainty. It is about facing it with openness. The paradox also shows in conflict. In arguments, the one who insists they are always right, who refuses to admit doubt, may win the noise of the moment, but they lose respect. The one who says, "I may be wrong, but this is how I see it," gains more influence. Their humility disarms. Their doubt makes their words more trustworthy. Confidence in conflict is not in shouting louder. It is in admitting you may not know everything. Even in personal growth, this paradox is alive. The person who says, "I know myself completely," may never grow beyond their current shell. But the one who admits, "I am still learning who I am, I still doubt, I still question," continues to evolve. Their confidence is not in finality, but in the journey. Admitting doubt keeps the door open for growth. So let us remember the confidence paradox. True confidence is not the absence of doubt. It is the presence of honesty. It is the ability to say, "I don't know," without fear. It is the courage to stand with uncertainty, to learn, to grow, to move forward anyway. The next time you feel doubt, do not hide it. Speak it gently. Live with it. Let it become part of your strength. Confidence is not built by covering cracks. It is built by standing with them openly. The paradox is simple, but profound. Admitting doubt is what makes you truly confident. That is the confidence paradox. The next paradox is called the security paradox. The more you cling to safety, the more fragile you feel. At first, this may sound contradictory. From the time we are children, we are taught to stay safe, to avoid danger, to protect ourselves from harm. We are told to build walls, to prepare for emergencies, to lock our doors, to ensure our lives, to hold tightly to what we have so that it cannot be lost. Security becomes not just a comfort, but a necessity, something to be pursued above all else. And yet, when you look closely, the paradox begins to reveal itself. The more desperately you try to cling to security, the less secure you feel. Every lock makes you worry more about thieves. Every savings account makes you fear loss. Every attempt to control risk makes you more aware of how fragile life truly is. The harder you hold on, the more fragile your grip becomes. Think of money. A person saves endlessly, hoarding wealth, fearing every possible expense. Their accounts grow, but so does their anxiety. They check balances daily. They worry about markets. They live in fear of losing what they work so hard to secure. And though they may have more than enough, they feel poorer in spirit. Another person saves wisely, but without obsession. They use money to live, to share, to enjoy moments. And paradoxically, though they may have less in numbers, they feel richer, stronger, more at peace. The pursuit of security brought fragility. The release of obsession brought strength. Consider love. Someone terrified of losing their partner clings tightly, demanding constant reassurance, fearing every silence, every absence, every sign of change. In trying to secure the relationship, they suffocate it. The love begins to weaken, not because of distance, but because of fear. Another person in the same situation accepts uncertainty. They know love can never be guaranteed, that it must be renewed freely each day. Instead of clinging, they trust. And in that trust, love becomes stronger. The paradox is alive. The more you cling to security, the more fragile you feel. The more you release, the safer the bond becomes. This paradox appears in history as well. Entire empires built walls so high, armies so vast, weapons so powerful, believing that absolute security would protect them forever. And yet, their obsession with safety often became the source of their collapse. They weakened under the weight of fear, unable to adapt, too rigid to change. Meanwhile, smaller nations, less obsessed with absolute safety, survived by flexibility, by trust, by resilience. Security built on fear becomes brittle. Security built on trust endures. Why does this paradox exist? Because security is not a thing you can hold forever. Life itself is uncertain. The future is unknown. To live fully is to step into risk each day. When you cling to safety too tightly, you begin to see danger everywhere. You magnify every shadow, you fear every possibility, you trap yourself in walls of your own making. But when you loosen your grip, when you accept uncertainty as part of life, you discover a deeper strength. True security is not found in clinging. It is found in openness. Think of health. Someone obsessed with avoiding sickness may wash their hands endlessly. Avoid people constantly. Worry over every symptom. Their life becomes a prison of fear. They live less, but worry more. And in the stress of obsession, their body weakens. Another person cares for their health with balance. They eat, they move, they rest. But they also laugh. They gather with friends. They live freely. They may face the same risks, but they feel healthier, stronger, safer. The more you cling to health as absolute safety, the more fragile you become. The more you live with balance, the more resilient you are. In work, the paradox appears too. Someone afraid of failure avoids risks, avoids challenges, stays only where they feel safe. Their career stagnates. They cling to the security of what they know, but that very clinging makes them weaker, less capable of facing change. Another person embraces uncertainty, learns new skills, tries new paths. They risk failure but gain resilience. Their openness becomes their strength. Security in work does not come from avoiding risk, but from meeting it with courage. Even in friendships, the paradox whispers. A person afraid of losing friends may try to control every detail, to hold people too close, to demand constant proof of loyalty. But this tight grip creates distance. The friends drift away. Another person gives space, trusts, accepts change. And because of that, friendships deepen because they are free. True connection is never chained. Consider spirituality. Many people cling to rituals, rules, doctrines, believing that if they just follow everything perfectly, they will be safe from doubt, safe from uncertainty. But their obsession with safety makes their faith fragile, because the moment one answer fails, the entire structure shakes. Another person accepts mystery. They embrace the unknown as part of the sacred, and in that openness, their faith becomes unshakable, not because it holds all answers, but because it can live without them. The paradox unfolds. Security grows not from clinging, but from release. Think of a bird in your hand. If you grip it too tightly, you harm it. If you hold it gently, it rests peacefully. Security is the same. Grip it too hard, and it becomes fragile. Hold it lightly, and it stays. Why do we feel fragile when we cling too much? Because fear replaces trust. The more you try to control, the more you see how little control you actually have. Every attempt to eliminate risk reveals more risks. Every attempt to lock life down makes you more aware of how it can slip away. But when you accept impermanence, when you live with trust, fragility fades. You feel stronger, not because danger disappears, but because you stop fearing its presence. Nature shows this truth everywhere. A tree that grows in perfect shelter never learns to bend. When storms come, it breaks. Another tree, grown in wind, in rain, in shifting soil, bends and sways, but does not fall. Its resilience is its strength. It did not cling to safety. It lived through uncertainty, and in doing so, it found real security. The paradox also touches time. Some people try to secure their future so tightly that they forget to live today. They sacrifice joy, connection, spontaneity, all in the name of preparing for tomorrow. But tomorrow is never guaranteed. And when it finally arrives, they discover they never felt secure at all. Another person prepares wisely, but not obsessively. They live today while planning for tomorrow. Their life feels fuller and, strangely, safer. By letting go of the obsession with absolute security, they discover a deeper calm. Even in art, this paradox lives. An artist afraid of failure may never share their work, hiding it in search of perfect safety. But in that hiding, they remain fragile, unseen, untested. Another artist takes the risk of being judged, of being misunderstood, being rejected. And through that risk, their art becomes strong. Security in art is not found in hiding. It is found in expression, in letting go. And so, the paradox reaches even into the smallest details of our lives. Think of walking down a familiar street. If you are constantly scanning, constantly watching, constantly fearing danger, every shadow looks like a threat. But if you walk calmly, aware but not obsessed, you notice the beauty around you, the colors of the sky, the rhythm of footsteps, the life unfolding in small gestures. Safety is not found in constant vigilance. It is found in balance. And there is yet another layer to this paradox. When you cling too tightly to safety, you forget that life itself is fragile and temporary. Death is not an accident of life. It is part of its nature. And so, true strength is not found in denying this fact, but in embracing it. The people who feel most alive are often those who have faced mortality, who know that safety is never guaranteed, and yet they live fully anyway. They laugh, they create, they love with open hands. Their security is not built on walls, but on courage. So, how do we live the security paradox? By caring for safety without clinging to it. By preparing wisely, but also accepting uncertainty. By building walls when needed, but also opening gates. By remembering that security is not a fortress, but a flow. True strength is not found in avoiding storms, but in learning to bend with them. Imagine life as a river. If you build a dam to stop the water, you may feel safe for a moment. But pressure builds, cracks form, and eventually the water breaks free with force. If instead you learn to float, to swim, to ride the current, you discover a safety that no wall can give you. You are not safe because nothing can happen. You are safe because you can move with what does. The security paradox teaches us that fragility comes from fear, but resilience comes from trust. The more you cling, the weaker you feel. The more you release, the stronger you become. True security is not in eliminating risk, but in embracing life fully, with openness, with balance, with calm. So remember this. Paradox the next time fear asks you to cling too tightly. Step back, breathe, trust the flow, build wisely, but live freely. Security is not found in walls of stone, but in hearts that can bend, in minds that can trust, in spirits that can face the unknown without fear. The paradox is clear. The more you cling to safety, the more fragile you feel. That is the security paradox. The next paradox is called the happiness of others paradox. The more you try to make others happy, the happier you become. At first, this sounds almost impossible. We live in a culture that constantly tells us happiness is personal, something to be pursued for ourselves alone. Advertisements whisper that joy lies in what we own, what we achieve, what we control. The world repeats the message that if you want happiness, you must take, acquire, and secure it for yourself. And yet, when you look closer, you see that the deepest joy does not arrive when you cling to your own pleasure. It comes when you give joy away. The paradox is quiet but powerful. The more you seek to lift others, the more your own spirit rises. Think of a simple act, like holding the door open for a stranger. It is such a small gesture, but when you see their smile, when you sense their relief in that moment of kindness, something stirs inside you. The warmth you gave away returns to you doubled. Or think of a time you comforted a friend who was struggling. You entered the conversation thinking it was for one. Yet when it ended, you realized your own heart felt lighter, your own burdens less heavy. In giving happiness, you discovered your own. This paradox has been noticed across centuries. In ancient Greece, Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, a kind of flourishing that comes not from selfish pleasure, but from living well with others. In Buddhism, compassion is called the highest path to joy, and modern psychology confirms it too. Acts of generosity increase serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin in the brain, the very chemicals that create happiness. Science has only rediscovered what the wise already knew. Joy multiplies when shared. Why does this paradox exist? Because human beings are not separate islands. We are woven into one another. When we seek only our own happiness, we shrink. We close ourselves off. We measure constantly. We fear losing what little we grasp. But when we turn outward, when we help, when we comfort, when we give, we step into connection. We step into connection. And in connection, happiness grows. The more we make others happy, the more we feel that happiness reflecting back on us like sunlight on water. Consider love. In many relationships, people enter thinking mostly of what they will receive. They expect happiness to come from being loved, from being admired, from being fulfilled. But those who find lasting love discover something deeper. Love thrives not in asking, "How can this person make me happy?" but in asking, "How can I bring happiness to them?" A partner who listens deeply, who gives small surprises, who offers comfort when it is needed, begins to glow in their own joy. Their happiness is inseparable from the happiness of the one they love. In serving the joy of another, their own heart overflows. The paradox also appears in friendship. Think of the people you call your closest friends. They are not the ones who demand attention constantly, who pull the light always toward themselves. They are the ones who listen, who share laughter, who stand with you in silence. They give without keeping score. And somehow, they are the happiest people in the room. Friendship shows us clearly that the more you give joy away, the more it returns, multiplied, through bonds of trust. In work, the paradox reveals another truth. Some people chase happiness at work by focusing only on their own advancement. They compete relentlessly. They guard their time. They demand recognition. And though they may climb quickly, their joy is thin, fragile, often poisoned by resentment. Another person works differently. They mentor younger colleagues, celebrate the victories of the team, offer help without asking what it will return. Strangely, their career grows stronger, and beyond career, their heart feels lighter, their days more meaningful. In giving happiness to others at work, they discover the kind of satisfaction no paycheck can buy. Even in money, the paradox is alive. We are taught to believe that wealth equals happiness, that if we collect enough, we will finally feel secure and joyful. But countless studies show the opposite. Beyond basic needs, money brings diminishing returns when spent only on ourselves. A new gadget, a new car, a new house quickly loses its shine. But when we spend on others, on gifts, on experiences together, causes greater than ourselves, the joy endures. The memory of a shared moment outlasts the object. The story of generosity glows longer than possession. The more we try to make others happy with our money, the happier we feel in return. Consider health. A person obsessed only with their own well-being may eat perfectly, exercise daily, measure every step, every calorie. And yet, their happiness feels thin, brittle, easily disturbed by one small slip. Another person chooses balance. They care for their body, yes, but they also cook for others, share meals, laugh at the table, dance with friends. Their health is not only in the body, but in the joy they spread. Their happiness strengthens because it is tied not just to themselves, but to the well-being of those around them. The paradox also touches creativity. An artist who creates only for themselves may find their happiness short-lived. Their work sits unseen, their joy fades quickly. But the artist who creates to move others, to touch hearts, to inspire laughter or thought, feels something greater when they see someone smile at their work, cry at their poem, or find comfort in their music. Their own happiness deepens. In making others feel, they feel more fully themselves. History is full of those who discovered this truth. Think of Mother Teresa, who lived among the poorest of the poor. By every external measure, she should have been overwhelmed by sorrow. But by giving joy to others, by serving, she radiated a happiness that touched millions. Or consider Nelson Mandela, who spent decades in prison. Instead of seeking revenge, he chose to give reconciliation, forgiveness, and hope to others. And in doing so, he found joy that no prison could take away. Great happiness is never selfish. It is born from the happiness we bring to others. Why do we admire generous people? Why do we look up to those who serve? Because we sense this paradox is true. Their joy feels real, deeper than pleasure, stronger than success. It is the joy of connection, the joy of contribution, the joy of giving. And deep down, we know that this is the happiness we long for too. Even in spirituality, the paradox speaks. Many traditions teach that happiness cannot be pursued directly. The path to joy is through compassion, through service, through kindness. In the Christian tradition, the words are simple. It is more blessed to give than to receive. In Buddhism, compassion is said to be the highest form of happiness. In Islam, Generosity is a duty, but also a source of joy. In Hinduism, the concept of seva, or selfless service, is seen as a sacred path. Across traditions, the message is the same. The happiness of others is the key to our own. Think of a parent. They spend sleepless nights, endless energy, constant sacrifice. From the outside, it looks exhausting. But ask most parents if they are happy, and their answer will often surprise you. Their happiness is not in their own comfort, but in seeing their child laugh, in hearing their child's joy. Their hearts swell with every smile they create. Parenthood shows the paradox in its purest form. The happiness of others becomes the happiness of self. The paradox even whispers in small, everyday details. Think of sharing a meal. If you eat alone, you may feel satisfied, but the moment ends quickly. If you share the meal, if you cook for someone you love, the happiness lingers. The taste becomes memory. The memory becomes warmth. Or think of laughter. A joke told to yourself may amuse you briefly, but shared laughter, echoing in the company of others, grows and multiplies. Happiness is never more alive than when it is given away. So how do we live this paradox? By shifting focus, by remembering that happiness is not a possession, but a flow, by looking outward instead of inward, by asking each day not only what will make me happy, but what can I do today to bring happiness to someone else? The answer may be simple: a smile, a word of encouragement, a moment of listening. And yet, in that simplicity, happiness grows. Imagine happiness as a candle flame. If you guard it only for yourself, it flickers nervously, fearful of every breeze. But if you light another candle with it, your flame is not diminished. Instead, the room becomes brighter, and the warmth you feel is greater than before. Happiness is the same. The more you share it, the stronger it becomes. Think of nature. A tree does not hoard the shade it creates. It gives it freely to all who rest beneath it. The ocean does not keep its beauty for itself. It reflects the sky, gives life to fish, carries ships, brings rain. The sun does not dim by shining on many. In fact, its power is in its generosity. Nature teaches us that the essence of strength, of joy, of life itself is in giving. And when we give, we grow. The happiness of others paradox is not just philosophy. It is a way of living. The more we live for ourselves alone, the smaller and more fragile our happiness becomes. The more we live for others, the larger and more enduring it grows. This is why people who volunteer, who give, who share, consistently report greater joy. Their lives are not easier, but their hearts are fuller. So let us remember this paradox. The pursuit of happiness is not a straight line inward, but a circle outward. The more you give, the more you receive. The more you lift others, the more you are lifted. The more you try to make others happy, the happier you become. The paradox is simple, but its truth is deep. Happiness is not kept. It is shared. And in sharing, it multiplies. That is the happiness of others paradox. The next paradox is called the Effortless Paradox. The less you force things, the more progress you make. At first, this sounds impossible. We are taught from the beginning that progress demands effort, that success is earned only by pushing harder, by grinding longer, by forcing our way through. From school to work to personal life, the message repeats endlessly. If you want results, you must fight for them. But when you look deeper, you begin to notice that life does not always follow this rule. Sometimes, the more you force, the less you achieve. Sometimes, real progress happens not in tension, but in ease. The paradox whispers, the less you force things, the more progress you truly make. Think of water. A river does not force its way straight through the mountain. It curves, it bends, it flows around obstacles. Over time, it shapes the stone itself. Its power is not in forcing, but in flowing. The mountain stands firm, yet the river carves valleys, creates canyons, moves earth itself. What force cannot do, flow can. Progress is not always about pushing harder. Sometimes, it is about letting go. Consider learning. Many students force themselves to memorize, to cram, to study late into the night with tension and fear. Their minds grow heavy, their memory collapses under pressure. The harder they force, the less they retain. But the student who studies with balance, who learns steadily, who rests, who allows the mind to breathe, remembers more, understands deeper. The paradox reveals itself. True mastery is not forced. It is absorbed. In love, this paradox is even clearer. Imagine a person who tries to force. Affection who demands constant reassurance, who presses for perfection in their relationship. The more they push, the more fragile the love becomes. Affection fades under the weight of pressure. But when love is given space, when trust is allowed, when presence replaces demand, love grows stronger. It deepens not by force, but by ease. You cannot force someone to love you, but you can allow love to bloom by not gripping it too tightly. Work also reveals the paradox. A person obsessed with progress may push themselves relentlessly, working late nights, sacrificing rest, ignoring balance. For a time, results may come, but soon exhaustion arrives. Creativity dries up, mistakes multiply, progress halts. Another person works with steadiness. They focus, but they also rest. They allow space for ideas. They step back when needed. They trust the process. And strangely, they accomplish more. Less forcing leads to greater results. The paradox of effortlessness is alive in every workplace, in every creative process, in every journey toward success. History shows this truth too. Many great thinkers, artists, and leaders spoke of the power of effortlessness. Lao Tzu, in the Tao Te Ching, described Wu Wei, the art of non-forcing, of moving with the natural flow. He wrote that the best way to act, to create, is not to push against life, but to move with it. Centuries later, this wisdom still holds. The greatest changes often happen not through tension, but through alignment. Why does this paradox exist? Because forcing creates resistance. When you force yourself, your body tenses, your mind narrows, your spirit tires. Progress slows. But when you relax, when you move with balance, when you trust the process, energy flows freely. The mind opens, the body aligns, creativity rises. Progress is no longer blocked. The less you force, the more natural strength appears. Think of health. Someone obsessed with fitness may push their body mercilessly, training every day, never resting, demanding perfection. Injury arrives, exhaustion spreads, the body weakens. Another person moves with balance, exercising, resting, enjoying the process. They grow stronger, healthier, happier. The less they force, the more progress they make. The body thrives in rhythm, not in strain. Even in money, this paradox unfolds. A person who forces wealth, working endlessly, chasing every opportunity, fearing every loss, may achieve numbers but lose peace. Their progress feels empty. Another person works steadily, gives value, trusts the rhythm of time. They may even give generously, knowing that flow creates abundance. And strangely, wealth grows around them, not only in money, but in fulfillment. Forcing wealth often drives it away, allowing flow attracts it. The paradox whispers in creativity too. An artist staring at a blank page may force words, lines, colors, trying desperately to create something perfect. The harder they push, the emptier the page feels. But when they step back, breathe, walk outside, laugh with a friend, suddenly inspiration flows. The less they force, the more progress they make. Great art often arrives not through pressure, but through openness. Consider music. A musician who forces every note sounds rigid, mechanical, lifeless. But the musician who allows space, who flows, who feels, creates music that breathes, that moves hearts. The same applies to life. Forced progress is rigid. Effortless progress is alive. In relationships with others, the paradox is powerful. A parent who forces their child constantly, demanding, pressuring, pushing, may see obedience but not joy. Growth becomes stunted under fear. Another parent guides gently, listens, allows space, trusts the child's rhythm, and the child flourishes. The less the parent forces, the more progress the child makes. Respect grows not in pressure, but in presence. Even in spirituality, the effortless paradox shines. Many seekers try to force enlightenment, to demand peace, to push for answers. But the harder they chase, the further peace seems. True spiritual growth comes not from grasping, but from surrender. Meditation works not by forcing thoughts to stop, but by allowing them to come and go. Prayer works not by demanding, but by opening. The less you force, the closer you move to the sacred. Think of conflict. In arguments, the person who forces their point, who pushes relentlessly, who demands to win, often loses respect. Their words may overwhelm, but hearts resist. Another person who listens, who speaks calmly, who does not force, often convinces more deeply. Their presence carries weight. The paradox unfolds again. The less you force, the more progress you make. Nature shows us this lesson every day. Grass does not force itself through the concrete, yet over time it grows through cracks, persistent but gentle. Flowers bloom not because they force, but because they follow the rhythm of sun and season. The ocean shapes cliffs not by sudden force, but by steady waves. Progress is natural when aligned with flow. The world itself whispers the effortless paradox in every leaf, every tide, every breath of wind. Why do we struggle so much with this truth? Because we fear letting go. We think if we stop forcing, nothing will happen. We think progress requires constant tension. But look back at your own life. How many times did the greatest breakthroughs come not when you forced, but when you released? The conversation that healed a relationship often came not from pressure, but from listening. The idea that changed your path often came not when you strained, but when you rested. Life is full of these quiet reminders. Even time itself reflects the paradox. When you rush, time feels scarce, slipping away no matter how hard you chase it. When you slow down, time expands. Hours feel fuller, moments stretch longer. The less you force life to move fast, the more time you truly feel. Progress is not always speed. Sometimes progress is presence. So how do we live the effortless paradox? By learning to let go of constant pressure, by remembering that growth is not always in pushing, but in aligning, by trusting that life has rhythms and progress flows more naturally when we move with them. We can care, we can act, we can prepare, but we do not need to force. Effortless progress is not laziness. It is a wisdom of balance. Imagine life as a garden. If you force the plants to grow by pulling their stems, they break. If you water, if you give light, if you create space, they rise on their own. Growth cannot be forced. It can only be nurtured. Think of your own breath. Force it, and it becomes shallow, uneven. Let it flow naturally, and it becomes deep, calming, life-giving. Breath itself is proof of the paradox. Life flows best when not forced. The effortless paradox is not a call to abandon effort, but to release strain, to replace force with flow, to understand that progress happens not only by pushing, but by aligning with the natural movement of life. Less tension, more openness. Less grasping, more trusting. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of all, that life is not a battle to be won, but a dance to be joined. Dancers who force every step look rigid, clumsy, out of rhythm. But those who relax, who trust the music, who allow their bodies to move naturally, create beauty without effort. Life is the same. When we stop forcing, we begin to dance. When we stop grasping, we begin to move in harmony with something larger than ourselves. Progress is not always in conquering the moment. Sometimes it is in surrendering to it. So the next time you find yourself forcing love, forcing success, forcing growth, pause. Step back. Breathe. Remember the river, the tree, the flower, the breath, the dance. Progress is not always about pushing harder. Often, it is about allowing more. The paradox is simple, but profound. The less you force things, the more progress you make. That is the effortless paradox. That was just the beginning. Each paradox opened another door, another way of looking at life. And now, after this journey, the world feels different, softer, quieter, full of hidden meaning. Let these ideas settle inside you. No need to remember them all. They will stay, like seeds, growing silently. For tonight, just rest, breathe, slowly. Drift into sleep, knowing that life is richer and stranger than it first appears.